So I was in the shower this morning thinking about LeBron James. I promise it was not weird, just your typical, shower thoughts. Now last night I was in the bath thinking about John Morant's, dunk on Malik Beasley. That got a little bit weird, but that's not what the video was about. Today we're talking about LeBron James, but also Kobe Bryant, and more importantly, getting to see these two generational talents, which I feel like that doesn't even do it service by saying generational talent. Like Kobe and LeBron, they are so much for the game of basketball. But it's so interesting getting to see their ends to their Laker careers, man. Now, let's call it like it is. We don't know when LeBron's going to retire. We don't know when LeBron is going to leave the Lakers, if he's going to leave the Lakers. But, similarly speaking, his time, at least it appears, should, logically speaking, should be ending. But then again, maybe LeBron plays till he's 50 at a top peak, man. And, that's just what it is. But I just feel, I think about, their tail ends to their careers and kind of, how the Lakers front office operated and almost, the price of, loyalty and how you're able to kind of coast a little bit better when a player is committed to a franchise as opposed to with LeBron James. Now, I'm not saying LeBron hasn't been loyal to teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers and stuff like that. He went back to that team, won them a championship ring. But for the most part, LeBron James goes to a team, takes complete ownership of it, man. He trades who he wants without caring anything about the future of the team. And, that's usually good for winning a ring or two. But then after that, the franchise left in a very bad place. So, LeBron got the ring in 2020 with the Lakers. And, when you think about it, that is the ultimate goal. Your goal is to win a championship. And LeBron was able to do that. But then I also think about, I look at the Miami Heat. I look at the Cleveland Cavaliers. I look at teams that LeBron has left. And just, it takes forever for them squads to bounce back, man. And the reason is because pretty much any player that has any sort of trade value or any asset in general, have that be draft picks, which is just a whole nother thing to start talking about. Chances are they're going to get traded. They're going to get traded, bring in veteran players, like Anthony Davises of the world, to make team, to make LeBron's team great in the moment. But the team ends up getting worse and everything. So, and then I think about Kobe Bryant's side of things, and Kobe, at Kobe's peak, which was essentially his entire career. I mean, I will say the last few seasons of Kobe Bryant, he did have a lot of injuries and things along those lines where it's okay, I mean, we can't all be LeBron James. Bodies can wear down, especially Kobe with that Mamba mentality. We see what he did on the court and we're already oh my goodness, how is this guy playing so much at this top level? But then you can't even imagine just the hours and hours and hours and miles that a player puts on their body to be as great as Kobe Bryant. I mean, it's just stuff that we can't even think about, man. So when it came to Kobe and trading assets away and developing stuff like that, initially he started off with Shaquille O'Neal. That went fine for a bit. Eventually, Shaq got traded away. Then there were some seasons of, Kobe Bryant being Kobe, but it wasn't really leading to anything else. And in that time, I don't have it in front of me, but I think they were still going out there, drafting players and stuff like that. It wasn't really until the Pau Gasol era that they decided, okay, let's trade away some of these draft picks. Let's bring somebody great into the team and go with that. And that's fine. I get, you want to bring the best players to your team in the moment and everything. But then, towards the tail end of Kobe's career, I know he was not playing at the level of LeBron James because of injuries, and also LeBron is just a freak of nature athlete. But the team, despite having that final 2015-2016 season where it was Kobe Bryant's farewell tour, and the season was definitely more about that and not developing guys like D'Lo, Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, they were still building for the future. And when Kobe retired, the team was in a pretty solid place, at least from a rebuild standpoint. And I say this as somebody that is a fan of small market teams. I say this as a person that's a fan of, rebuilding a team. I mean, don't get me wrong. If superstar players wanted to come play Detroit, I'd be all for it. But I would say, generally speaking, you do have the teams like the Lakers where it's they can be a little bit more risky with some of the moves they make, because you do know in the end of the day, there's always going to be players that want to play in LA. But I don't know, man. I feel like Kobe still left them in a pretty good place. Then once Kobe retired, they were able to still have a top pick because that season was more dedicated towards, his farewell tour and not so much, winning games and stuff like that. Not that they were really in a great position to do so anyway. But they still kept their draft pick and they were still able to draft Brandon Ingram And, Kobe retires. A few years go by. You're looking at a team, you got Julius Randle, you got Brandon Ingram, we got Lonzo Ball. A lot of really solid players, man. Guys that are like foundations of rosters today. And I say what you about Julius Randle. He still won a Most Improved Player award. He's still fantastic, man. But, so I just look at the different circumstances of LeBron took all of that and he just got rid of it. He's like, nope, we are trading all these guys away. We are bringing in Anthony Davis. And we're going to trade all these other draft picks. So we're going to bring in my buddies. We're going to bring in these old players. And now where are we at? Where are we at the Lakers? We are left with a team that has no future whatsoever, man. At least not for a very, very, very long time. And even to the case where I don't think, for one, I feel like the Frank Vogel firing, I thought they did him dirty. I feel like he was scapegoated big time. Now, when you have that team, you don't make the playoffs, you don't make the play-in tournament. Yes, chances are coaching will get fired because of that, man. But I didn't look at Frank Vogel and be like, he is the sole issue with this team. I feel like he was given a very piss-poor fit roster, bringing in Russell Westbrook, and was expecting to make it work in ways that we all looked at like, this is never going to work. So it's like, when you don't give somebody the tools for success, how are they supposed to succeed, right? And that's kind of what I saw with it. But the thing is that LeBron's just going to leave. He's just going to leave, go to a different team, or maybe just retires, and that team has nothing, man. That team has nothing. They have Anthony Davis, but even Anthony Davis, I've been hearing about like his trade value and stuff like that. A lot of Laker fans kind of hype up his trade value just because he is AD, but I mean, there was once upon a time not too long ago where people were talking about AD, he's like top 3, top 4, top 5 players in the league. Who's better, AD or Giannis? And now, like, people don't even got him in their top 10, man. So, and a lot of that's because of his own injury issues, and even him, I mean, if you traded him right now, you are not going to get equal value back for what it took to get him on the squad. But once again, they won a championship, man. So, it's like, that made it worth it. But then I think about the word loyalty. And I think about Kobe Bryant. And Kobe is a competitor, man. Like, Kobe does not back down from a challenge. I mean, he's playing through all these injuries that probably would have just completely derailed anybody else's NBA career. And once again, they did have an effect on his overall play. But, no, man, it has me thinking, due to his loyalty to the Lakers, there's so many times he probably could have requested, let's trade this draft, let's bring in this guy, man, let's bring in this guy, let's bring in this guy. But he didn't. And I don't know if part of that was just because he knew that his time in the league was starting to fizzle out. He's like, well, there's going to be a time where Kobe doesn't play for the Lakers. I wonder if he thought about stuff like that. As opposed to LeBron James, who's not particularly loyal to the Lakers franchise. He does play for the Lakers, but that doesn't mean he's loyal to them. And just like his ability to like build a team that way and just be like, I'm just going to come here and just get rid of everything. And then we get to this situation where it doesn't work out. They don't make the play-in. And you start pointing the fingers. Now, what exactly do the Lakers need to even do to fix things? I think in the long term, there really isn't a fix. In the long term, man, I would say you try not to trade away your draft picks. I know for a long, or at least last season, going to the trade deadline, they were dangling, THT and a 2027 first round pick. I think that 2027 is the first pick they're able to trade. Although I think after this season, they have access, it's either to the 2026 pick or the 2028 pick based off the Stephen rule, which I believe makes it so you cannot trade consecutive draft picks in the same season or something along those lines. But I mean, even with this, even with the Lakers being this bad, at least when Kobe and the Lakers were bad, they still had draft picks to trade because he wasn't, selling the entire team away to bring in his friends and everything. And this is not really meant to be hate towards LeBron because he does have multiple championships. That is a more aggressive way to build a championship team. But man, it just like when the window closes, that thing is closed and buried away, man. So with the Lakers, I really think the only thing they can do is just think about the short term. And in the short term, what can they do? They don't have the assets to trade away. They have Russell Westbrook, who's got 1 year left on his contract, which I guess does help. But, if he still had 3 or 4 years, they would just be absolutely screwed. And maybe they just run it back, and that's fine. But we know they're not going to win a championship with Russell Westbrook on the team. It's just not going to happen unless they can bring in the perfect players. So I think the first thing is you got to be realistic with the team. You got to be realistic with the expectations, what your roster is, and just kind of make the best of a bad situation. I would not trade away any draft picks, but I mean, if you only have the short-term window to look at, then that might be the only option. And then as far as Westbrook goes, I'm sorry, man, but you get rid of him any way that you can. You look at that 2020 championship Lakers team, and why did they work exactly? Because it didn't have guys like Westbrook on it. It was LeBron's and AD's team, and everybody else around them played a specific, 3-and-D's type of role, just like you knew if you were LeBron, who just thinks 10 steps ahead every single time he's on the court, like you knew where guys were going to be, how they were going to be, and he was able to orchestrate that like almost like an NFL quarterback is probably the best way I can put him in. So I've been thinking about like Westbrook trades, because really that's the only trade assets they have. It's not even an asset. Like, you can trade Westbrook, but you're not going to get a great return back from him. There's a few cases where I think it's possible. You have THT, who I think's value is overinflated by being on the Lakers. I think a lot of teams don't value him as highly as Laker fans do. And then you got Anthony Davis, who, man, with AD, because it's like he just came off probably his worst NBA season of all time. So you take that chance of like, okay, you play him next year, you try to see how great he does. Maybe similar to like Kevin Love on the Cleveland Cavaliers this past season, where it's like he almost got like 6 Man of the Year award because how great he was able to like resurrect his career and everything like that. Or you just try to train him now and just hope that's like you did kind of trade him when he was really falling off, because we don't know what AD's gonna be back like next season, man. Like, you get a lot of those players that get those lower body injuries, and especially for 7-footers, like those things can absolutely linger on. The trade that I've been really thinking about, I mean, I know the one that a lot of people talk about is, Russell Westbrook over to the Rockets for John Wall, and maybe you can pull in Eric Gordon too if you can make salaries match. I mean, that's something. It still doesn't make the championship team. And then I think about the Pacers one, but this is going to require giving up quite a bit of draft picks here, man. And that is going to be, Russell Westbrook, probably THT and some picks over to the Pacers, who are in a full-on rebuild, to bring in guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Buddy Hield, who do have very long contracts. At least I know Malcolm does. He did sign an extension last season, which is why he hasn't been traded yet, but he can be traded in this offseason. So yeah, I mean, you can do something like that and just hope that the Pacers will just take on anything to get out of those contracts, because Russell is an expiring deal. They could probably even buy him out if they wanted to. That's really the only thing I can think about, because Brogdon and Malcolm, alongside AD and LeBron James, like, to me, that's really solid. Like, that's definitely something that fits all of their styles of play. But I don't know. I know when it comes to like being like an NBA GM, flexibility is a big thing, and just having the ability to, look at the short term and also long term. But I think when you're not loyal to a franchise, you just think about your time there. You don't think about, life after LeBron on the Lakers. As with Kobe, I think it was a bit of a different circumstance. Now, LeBron ended up getting a ring out of it, but now I don't really know what happens, man. So that's all we have for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and peace out, my friends.